where do you go to learn stuff? You go to YouTube, right? YouTube is basically destroying the traditional education system. Like basically, because of YouTube, college, high school, maybe even primary school is just irrelevant. It's useless now, which is great. I am more than ecstatic about that development. But most people have not adapted to this reality, right? Um, but I believe that we should adapt and embrace it because I think it's fantastic. The education system has been an absolute disaster, right? For I don't know, 100 years, whatever it's been at least 3 or 4 generations, which is terrifying, right? Which is probably why things are kind of in a not a great state, you know. IQs have been dropping, math and reading scores are dropping and dropping. Um, I don't know if YouTube's going to fix that, right? I hope that it does. I hope that people realize that they can accomplish great things earlier in life. I think that we waste so many years of people's lives in the education system, as I mentioned. I mean, it's just so tragic that people, you know, it's like from 5 years old until 18 years old, or nowadays it's even more. It's like 5 years old until 30 years old. You know, people waste the prime of their life when they're young and energetic and malleable and can learn quickly and can adapt. And they're stuffing themselves into this box of traditional education. Um, and I'm sure if anybody's watching who's still in that system, I'd love for you to comment, and also uh, how much do you use YouTube to do your schoolwork, right? How much do you use YouTube to figure stuff and the internet, right? Like, I mean, everything's on the internet. Even classes they understand that you're going to use the internet for everything, but but just accepting that the idea of like a piece of paper being given for a degree, you know, letters next to your name, that doesn't really tell you much. I mean, it tells you that the person went to the school. And there's, I mean, let me, you know, give some credit where it's due, right? Devoting your time to learning something and showing that you devoted your time to learning something is not totally useless, right? But if people are able to, you know, develop experience, like I've said, when I started a business, I realized I learned something new every day, if not every hour, right? When you're in the business world and when you're running a business, you know, if you're working, maybe you learn something every day or at least every week or, you know, every few days. But in school, it's like you learn something every month sometimes. I mean, and then you forget it because it's not being applied. So I just feel like it's far more efficient to learn things by doing them. It's so much more efficient to learn things when you're applying them to your life, when you're doing something you're excited about. You know, that's kind of what my whole channel's about. My Don't Work Hard video is about that idea that you're going to, if you can avoid working, the way that you avoid working is by doing things you love. It doesn't mean not doing anything, right? Like, I'm kind of being facetious with that. I'm not saying you don't work, as in you never apply force to objects and move them. That's the physics definition of work. But I'm saying you never are doing something that you're like, oh, I don't want to work on that. You know, you like the word work. It's almost like the word work inside of our brain means we have to like force something in our brain or in our person to get that to do that thing. That's what I think we should avoid if we can. And it's obviously easier said than done. I will totally admit that. Um, but you know, if you're doing things that you're excited about, that's the way that you're going to really learn the skill. That's why YouTube is amazing. Everybody's got YouTube on their phone or, you know, the internet, and it's like you're doing something. You just ask the internet right there to help you on the thing that you're stuck on, and then you can keep going. Nobody's arguing in favor of the current education system, right? I mean, I think most people think that we need some sort of formal education so that you can say, you know, it's like it's almost like regulation on knowing that somebody has learned something. Because if you meet somebody and they come in for a job interview and they never went to any schooling of any kind, it's going to be a little harder, right? And that's like the whole point of the education system is to create workers. If you don't know the history of the education system, you can look into, I think it's the Prussian model or something like that. But it's basically, it was designed in the Industrial Revolution to create people who would go to the factory and like pull the lever every 5 seconds or whatever it is that they had to do. The education system is not designed for you, it's designed for corporations. It's designed for the government, it's designed for the establishment that wants to be able to sort you and know what you are, and without spending any time getting to know you, right? And I'm sure you can guess that the way of my perspective, the way of service is not the way to do it, and it doesn't work anyways. If you're going to hire somebody, they're going to be a huge part of your company. You got to get to know them, and so the best thing to do is to be efficient about getting to know them, as opposed to trying to avoid it. And I guess what they're doing, they're filtering out people before they hire them, right? And that's a big challenge. And I mean, I feel like the best way to handle that is to, say a prayer, let synchronicity, let the universe bring the right candidate to you, and let your instinct be your guide, right? As opposed to trying to have some computer or some like harsh filtering system. Because I think most people who have tried to search for jobs have met with a lot of frustration and disappointment because, they're not given a chance, and they should be given a chance, right? So that's certainly an issue in the current world. We've got 2 live viewers. We got a like. You hit the like button if you're enjoying this at all. So let's see. Yale says, I think a huge issue with education is we are trying to do it on too large of a scale. Yeah, but yeah, I agree with you. Like education, this is a big thing for my family, because we are planning on homeschooling our children. Parenting is something that shouldn't be outsourced. I really feel like that's been probably one of the biggest problems that's happened in the last 100 years, and as a part of the education system, it's almost like it's like glorified babysitting. There's some things we have to do on a large scale, and then there's some things that obviously shouldn't be done on a large scale, like parenting. I mean, parenting is like the perfect example of something that has to be done on a small scale, and it like always fails. I mean, you can look at all the data about children in daycare and stuff like that. It's just like when parenting is outsourced, it doesn't benefit anyone. Outsourcing, parenting and childcare, it is very expensive and it's not effective, right? As a society and as individuals, we should do our best to get closer to our children, be closer to their needs, and not try to just outsource and outsource and outsource that part. And the result of that is the modern education system, as I was talking about earlier. The result of outsourcing parenting is this education system. It's on too large of a scale, as in like there's a national education standard or whatever, but there's also like too large of a scale in terms of a child's time. The first half of education is just general education with one teacher. It's like one teacher and then like 20, 30 students all day just in a room. That's not good. Rackham Willie says, scale destroys the intimacy. And then Eleanor says, love the word intimacy applied to all these topics. Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you. Yeah, the word intimacy. So like if something requires intimacy, which I would say education does, in order to be a good teacher and to be a good student, like they have to have a relationship, right? So again, that word can be applied, intimacy and relationship. The more relationship that is needed, a patient and their doctor. These are all things where it's like if you outsource it or scale it up, it's like you can't just replace one doctor with the next and have them do the same job, right? Let's say you've had a doctor for 20 years of your life, and then they're like, oh, here's this other doctor. I can't help you anymore. I mean, it's not even the same. It's not going to be on the same level at all, like not even close. I think one of the great things about life and about reality is that things tend to work out, right? Everybody's working on these problems. either they're working on them in their own lives, and then it kind of spreads to their sphere of influence, or they're actually working on them in in the big scale. Um, I think, like I said, nobody's defending the old education system. I think it's on the way out, and it's already been replaced. I mean, it's been replaced by YouTube. Let's be honest. I mean, and every day that goes by, YouTube is growing, and the internet is growing, and other platforms where you can find information. It's just gonna annihilate the education system. Like it's over. I mean, it's not even worth talking about, to be honest with you.